that's a very fair question. I want to know that answer.
The Bureau of Prisons decided on their own, without any consultation with Blanche or anyone else, that they were going to suddenly, after this interview, completely unrelated to this interview, completely unrelated to anything she said, move her to a prison not suitable for a sex offender. You want the American people to believe that? Do you think they're stupid?
No, I think the American people believe the truth, that I'm not in the weeds on.
The director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation just told a United States senator that he is not in the weeds on the everyday movements of inmates. That inmate is Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman convicted of sex trafficking, serving a 20-year federal sentence, connected to one of the most significant criminal cases in modern American history. And the senator's response was a question that stopped the hearing room cold. Do you think they're stupid? In the next 20 minutes, you are going to understand exactly what Senator Adam Schiff was pointing at when he asked that question. Not the political framing. Not the partisan temperature. The specific documented sequence of events, a private meeting, a policy violation, and a prison transfer, that Kash Patel could not explain under oath. We are going to build a timeline. One verified fact at a time. And after each fact, we are going to ask one question. Did Patel know about this? By the time this timeline is complete, you will have the answer. And the answer is more significant than anything either side said in anger that day. The director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation just told a United States senator that he is not in the weeds on the everyday movements of inmates. That inmate is Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman convicted of sex trafficking, serving a 20-year federal sentence, connected to one of the most significant criminal cases in modern American history. And the senator's response was a question that stopped the hearing room cold. Do you think they're stupid? In the next 20 minutes, you are going to understand exactly what Senator Adam Schiff was pointing at when he asked that question. Not the political framing. Not the partisan temperature. The specific documented sequence of events, a private meeting, a policy violation, and a prison transfer, that Kash Patel could not explain under oath. We are going to build a timeline. One verified fact at a time. And after each fact, we are going to ask one question. Did Patel know about this? By the time this timeline is complete, you will have the answer. And the answer is more significant than anything either side said in anger that day. Now the second entry in the timeline. Before Maxwell was transferred, a meeting took place. That meeting was between Ghislaine Maxwell and Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche is not a Bureau of Prisons official. He is not a Maxwell family representative. He is not her legal counsel. Todd Blanche is the former personal defense attorney of Donald Trump. He represented the president in the criminal hush money trial in New York. He is now a senior official within the Department of Justice. That meeting happened. It is documented. It was referenced on the official Senate record by Schiff and was not disputed by Patel. Schiff's question was direct. He asked Patel to explain what prompted Blanche to meet with Maxwell, who made the decision to transfer her, and why the transfer happened when it did. Patel's answer was that he was not in the weeds on the everyday movements of inmates. He said that to a senator asking about a meeting between the president's former personal attorney and the most significant convicted trafficking associate in the Epstein case. Not in the weeds.
The Bureau of Prisons decided on their own, without any consultation with Blanche or anyone else, that they were going to suddenly, after this interview, completely unrelated to this interview, completely unrelated to anything she said, move her to a prison not suitable for a sex offender. You want the American people to believe that? Do you think they're stupid?
No, I think the American people believe the truth, that I'm not in the weeds on the everyday movements of
you're
inmates.
Not in the weeds?
What I am doing is protecting this country, providing historic reform, and combating the weaponization of intelligence by the likes of you. And we have countlessly proven you to be a liar in Russiagate, in January 6th. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution. And
let us slow down on the policy question because it is the most legally specific element of this entire exchange. Bureau of Prisons policy requires that individuals convicted of sex offenses be housed in facilities rated at least at the low security level. This policy exists to ensure appropriate supervision and housing conditions for this specific category of inmate. Maxwell was in a low-security facility. That met the policy requirement. She was transferred to a minimum security facility. That falls below the policy requirement for her offense category. This is not a subjective interpretation. It is not a matter of political framing. The policy either applies or it does not. And either the transfer was consistent with that policy or it was not. Senators from both parties have now formally requested an explanation for this transfer. The Bureau of Prisons has not publicly addressed the policy question directly. Patel told the committee he was not involved in inmate placement decisions. He said the Bureau of Prisons operates independently on those decisions. Schiff's follow-up question was the one that mattered most. He asked whether Patel genuinely expected the American public to believe the Bureau of Prisons transferred Maxwell independently of any outside input, given the timing of the Blanche meeting. Patel repeated that he was not in the weeds. That answer is now on the permanent Senate record. And it answers 0 of the 3 questions Schiff actually asked. Now there is a second layer to this hearing that connects directly to the Maxwell question. Patel has stated publicly, and repeated in congressional testimony, that the FBI has released more than 33,000 pages of Epstein-related material. 33,000 is a significant number. It sounds like comprehensive disclosure. It is the number the administration has pointed to repeatedly when asked about Epstein file transparency. Schiff challenged it directly. His challenge was not that the number was false. His challenge was about what the number actually means. The Department of Justice has confirmed that the total volume of potentially responsive Epstein material runs into the millions of pages. Against that total, 33,000 pages represents a small fraction of the full file. Schiff's point was that releasing 33,000 pages out of millions is not the same as full transparency. It is selective release. And when the Maxwell transfer happens without explanation at the same time the administration is making claims about releasing Epstein files, the two things belong in the same conversation. Patel disputed the framing. He said the 33,000 pages represented what was legally permitted to be released given the court orders in place. And then Schiff asked the question that produced the most explosive exchange of the entire hearing. If you are releasing what is legally permitted, who is making the determination about what is legally permitted? And is that determination being made by the same administration that just moved Maxwell to a minimum security facility days after the president's former personal attorney met with her privately? Patel's response was the one you heard at the start of this video. He called Schiff a political buffoon. Subscribe to AVA Reports right now if you want to see exactly how Schiff responded to that. And what the exchange that followed revealed about the limits of what Patel is willing to say under oath. The button is right below this video. Hit it before part 2 starts. Before we get to that exchange, there is one more entry in the transfer timeline that needs to be on your screen. We have the transfer. Maxwell moved to a facility below policy requirements for her offense category. We have the meeting. Todd Blanche, the president's former personal attorney, met with Maxwell before that transfer. Now the third entry. What the timing actually shows. The Blanche meeting and the Maxwell transfer did not happen months apart. They did not happen with any documented administrative review period between them. They happened in close proximity. The meeting came first. The transfer followed. Schiff did not allege that Blanche ordered the transfer. He did not allege that Patel directed it. He asked a more specific and more powerful question. He asked whether the American public was supposed to believe these two events were unconnected. Patel said he was not in the weeds. That is the third and final entry in the transfer timeline. And when you see all 3 entries together on one graphic, the question that Schiff called on the American public to ask themselves becomes unavoidable. 3 verified facts. 1 answer that addressed none of them. That is where part 2 begins.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
Well, you can take an internet troll.
Take it to the bank that the FBI is protecting this country and the state and citizens of California. We are bringing historic reform.
Point of
order. But all you care about is a child sex predator that was prosecuted by a prior administration and the Obama Justice Department and the Biden Justice.
Every outlet covering this hearing led with those insults. Political buffoon. Internet troll. The shouting. The gavel. And every outlet missed what the insults actually reveal. Because here is what happened in the exact sequence that produced that exchange. Schiff asked Patel whether the American public was supposed to believe the Bureau of Prisons moved Maxwell independently. Patel said he was not in the weeds. Schiff then asked whether Patel thought the American people were stupid. Patel did not answer that question either. He shifted to attacking Schiff's credibility on Russiagate and January 6. Schiff then asked about the 33,000 pages claim and what percentage that represented of the full Epstein file. Patel did not answer that question. He attacked Schiff personally. Do you see the pattern that just emerged across 3 consecutive questions? Question about Maxwell transfer independence. No answer. Question about whether the public is being treated as intelligent. No answer. Question about the percentage of files released. No answer. What came out of Patel's mouth instead of answers to those 3 questions was the word buffoon. In a federal oversight hearing. Under oath. On national television. The anger was not a loss of composure. It was a substitution. When the questions cannot be answered without creating problems, the hearing strategy becomes making the question itself the problem. Attacking the credibility of the questioner. Making the exchange about character instead of the specific documented sequence of events you cannot explain. Schiff understood this perfectly. Which is why his response was not outrage. It was one sentence. Quiet. Precise. Aimed not at Patel but at the people watching. You can make an internet troll the FBI director. But he will always be an internet troll. Now here is the piece of this hearing that has received almost no serious coverage. And it changes the significance of everything else we have discussed. The Maxwell transfer and the fired FBI agents are not 2 separate stories. They are connected by the same documented institutional question. Brian Driscoll was one of the agents fired by Patel. His lawsuit, filed in federal court, alleges that he was removed from his position for resisting demands to identify agents who had worked on the January 6 investigation. That lawsuit is active and unproven. But the allegations are on the federal record. The same administration that fired Driscoll for allegedly resisting those demands is the same administration that moved Maxwell to a lower security facility without public explanation days after the president's former personal attorney met with her. These 2 things, the firings and the transfer, share one structural characteristic. In both cases, the people who might have raised questions internally were no longer in their positions. And in both cases, the official explanation for why the action was taken has not been provided in specific, documentable terms. Driscoll and the other fired agents had 60 combined years of FBI experience. They knew how to document. They knew what the institutional guardrails were. They knew what questions to ask and who to ask them to. They are gone. The Maxwell transfer happened. The Blanche meeting happened. The policy deviation happened. Patel was not in the weeds.
Are you testifying today that you never terminated anyone at the FBI, in whole or in part, because of a prior case assignment?
No one at the FBI is terminated for case assignments alone.
Well, I'm asking about you, Mr. Patel. Did you, in whole or in part, terminate anyone at the FBI because they worked on the Trump investigation or because they worked on January 6th?
No one at the FBI has been terminated for case assignments alone.
Okay, you're saying alone. Does that mean they were terminated in part because they were assigned to a January 6th case or assigned to the Mar-a-Lago case? You're being very precise here, Mr. Patel. You're saying alone. That means they were fired in part because they were assigned those cases. Is that your testimony?
Absolutely not. But if you want to keep putting words in my mouth,
then
go
let me
ahead.
ask you, let's
3 specific developments that will determine how this story ends. And all 3 are already in motion. The first is the Driscoll federal lawsuit. active in Washington, D.C. federal court. If it survives early motions to dismiss and reaches the discovery phase, both sides must exchange documentation. Communications between the FBI Director's Office, the Department of Justice, and the White House about personnel decisions become potentially subject to court-ordered disclosure. Whether Patel took orders from the White House on firings, as the lawsuit alleges and Patel denies, will be tested under the legal standards of civil litigation. Not the political standards of a congressional hearing where questions can be deflected with insults. The second is the Maxwell transfer. Formal requests for explanation have been submitted by multiple senators. The Bureau of Prisons has not publicly addressed the policy deviation. The Blanche meeting has not been officially explained. Congressional subpoena authority exists and has not yet been fully deployed on this specific question. Whether that authority gets used, and by whom, will tell you something significant about institutional appetite for accountability on this case. The third is the 33,000 pages. Patel has consistently used that number as evidence of transparency. Schiff has consistently challenged it as a fraction of the total. A federal judge has already stated on the record that the material held by the Department of Justice dwarfs anything limited by grand jury secrecy rules. If the court orders currently limiting release are challenged on appeal, or if congressional subpoena authority produces additional disclosures, the 33,000 pages figure will either hold up or it will not. That answer will come from a courtroom, not a hearing room. And underlying all three of these developments is one question that connects everything in this documentary. In whose interest is it for these specific facts to remain unclear? And who has the power to make them clear? Here is the complete transfer timeline. Built entirely from the verified public record. Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted of sex trafficking and serving a 20-year federal sentence, was housed in a low-security facility consistent with Bureau of Prisons policy for sex offense inmates. Todd Blanche, the president's former personal defense attorney and now a Department of Justice official, met with Maxwell privately. Following that meeting, Maxwell was transferred to a minimum security facility. A step below the policy requirement for her offense category. No public explanation was provided for the transfer. No public explanation was provided for the Blanche meeting. Kash Patel told the Senate Judiciary Committee he was not in the weeds on the everyday movements of inmates. That is the timeline. 3 entries. 1 documented policy deviation. 1 unanswered question about a meeting between the president's former personal attorney and the most significant Epstein associate in federal custody. And 1 FBI director who chose the words "not in the weeds" rather than any of the 3 specific answers Adam Schiff asked for. Senator Schiff's question at the start of this documentary was not rhetorical. It was a specific challenge. Do you think they're stupid? The American public watching that hearing has access to the same documented facts you now have access to. The meeting happened. The transfer happened. The policy deviation happened. The questions went unanswered. What conclusion those facts support is your decision. Not ours. But here is what AVA reports will tell you directly. The pattern of unanswered questions in this case, across the Epstein files, the Maxwell transfer, the fired agents, the 33,000 pages, the incomplete sentence, the word alone, is not random. Patterns of non-answers do not emerge from institutions where accountability is functioning as designed. They emerge from institutions where the accountability mechanisms have been weakened, replaced, or removed. Whether that is what happened here is a question the courts are now beginning to answer. We will track every verified development. 2 questions for the AVA reports community right now. The first. The Bureau of Prisons transferred Ghislaine Maxwell to a minimum security facility in apparent deviation from its own policy for sex offense inmates, without public explanation, following a private meeting between the president's former personal attorney and Maxwell. Do you believe a full, specific, documented explanation for this transfer should be required by Congress? Yes or no, and tell me why. The second. Based on everything this documentary covered, the transfer, the meeting, the fired agents, the word alone, the unanswered questions, Do you believe the FBI under Kash Patel is functioning as an independent law enforcement agency? Or do you believe it has become an instrument of the administration it serves? Drop both answers below. The debate that happens here is exactly what this channel exists to support. Real questions. Documented facts. Your conclusions. Subscribe to AVA Reports and hit the notification bell. The next chapter of this story is already in motion. Thank you for watching.